Is Battlefield 2042 actually about to make a comeback? For the past year, this game has struggled to retain players. With each seasonal release, the game has seen less and less players come back to check out the new content. That is until now. Battlefield 2042 Season 3 is the first time that we've seen the player count come back in these quantities since December of 2021, practically a year ago. Now, of course, it has been a big holiday weekend in North America, so naturally more people are gaming, but I do think reasons for more players coming back goes a bit beyond that. Season 3 has had one of the most positive receptions with the player base so far, and deservedly so. The new map, guns, vehicles, and gadgets are fun, and they finally feel like they're starting to tie all the weird style choices of 2042 together. It's the first time 2042 feels more like the future versus just an alternate timeline, and the content is actually fun to play. It's also, at least for me, kindling some hype for the Specialist rework. The Specialist have been one of, if not the most contentious change with Battlefield 2042, and the rework aims to fix the biggest flaws with the system. And sure, it's not coming till like a full year after launch, but with the majority of the massive maps totally reworked, tons of performance fixes, and quality of life updates, the next major patch will release atop a much better game than what was first delivered. If it's as good as I'm hoping it'll be, it could foster a much healthier and larger player base more invested in the future of this title. And as we know, DICE has committed to additional content after Season 4, aka Year 2 content. Their plans for this content are intentionally vague, as I'm sure they are curious to see just how many players actually come back to the game before they decide the amount of content that they want to make for it. So I think it's safe to say that the quantity of content we get for the rest of 2042's life cycle is very dependent on how well the next few months of content are received. Naturally, my excitement for a potential comeback is mixed together with fear. Battlefield is an old franchise, and its biggest problem consistently has been its slow adaptation to modern trends, and even worse, the poor implementation of those modern trends, such as the Specialist or cringy player and weapon skins. But there is one thing that pretty much all of the other big brand games and even the smaller ones are doing nowadays, and that's delivering players a seemingly endless amount of unlocks and light content that actually feels worth grinding and progressing toward. Just in the last month, I've been playing a lot of Marvel Snap, Warhammer 40k, and Modern Warfare 2, and by comparison, the flow of that content and the things to progress towards in those titles are just on a whole nother level when compared to Battlefield. And those games are from fairly different genres, but companies know that part of retaining higher player counts and getting people invested in your game is a strong live service and constant stream of content. Finding ways to make light content such as skins, emblems, badges, and whatever else that's relatively low effort but creates extra stuff for the more dedicated players to do has become an obvious play for most developers. And I admit it is a little odd to criticize 2042 on this specific front, because one of the community's ongoing debates is about whether or not live service has been a mistake for the franchise overall, but also because 2042 has some of the best seasonal pass progression trees and assignments that the franchise has ever had. Just look back at what we got with Battlefield 5 and then before that with Battlefield 1. This is miles beyond those games in terms of mission design and weekly assignments. But if we're being honest, it's also miles behind pretty much every other major game. And I think EA needs to realize that good gameplay isn't going to be enough these days if they want to compete in the AAA arena. Their seasonal content and Battle Pass lasts for 3 months with weekly missions that can all be completed in pretty much a single play session, and it's just not enough for the dedicated fan of Battlefield. I was able to max out all of the last season's content playing no more than once a week. And when a new gun comes out, well, it's extremely easy to farm bots and get all the unlocks in pretty much a single game. Plus, the endgame skins are pretty lackluster, they can be farmed with bots, and outside of the Battle Pass, there really aren't any other secondary economies for earning skins or currency to buy cosmetics that you might like. Now, believe me, I don't want the mainstay of Battlefield to turn into a mobile game economy or anything like that, but just comparing it to, say, building out a Warhammer Darktide character or grinding Modern Warfare 2 skins and unlocks, there's just far more time investment and sense of progression in those games, where Battlefield kind of undermines its own progression system. Now, obviously, fun gameplay, balance, and ease of access are going to be far more important qualities and baseline requirements for a game to be good. But for Battlefield to compete at the level that it undoubtedly wants to compete at, the live service content really has to step things up. Do I think they can drastically improve things from here with 2042? Well, maybe, but it's just one of those things that I know deep down makes a huge difference in player retention, whether or not the player base actually wants to admit it. I do occasionally see people arguing for the old school paid DLC content delivery system with the Battlefield franchise, and I honestly just don't see that system surviving in today's modern environment with so much free content being delivered all the time. Now, looking on the more positive side, in the next several months, almost all of the base game maps will have had their full reworks. Hourglass and Discarded will be the last on the list, and I am expecting to see them addressed in Season 4, but even as we progress through Season 3, it means the average game that you queue up for will flow much better, and it'll have more fun maps and cover and better ways to fight back against vehicles. The overall experience is really making huge progress towards just being fun most of the times that you actually hit that play button. We can always sit around and argue about the quantities of maps and the quantities of weapons, but first things first, the game really does have to be fun when you join a server, and I have personally been having a great time in the vast majority of games these days, especially if it's a new map or one of the reworked old maps. Of course, there's still plenty of lingering issues, the lack of a good front-end matchmaking system. You can still queue up for modes that aren't populated, and it might take you a little while to search around for an actual mode that people are playing, which is just bad user experience design. Portal does seem like it's actually making a lot more traction now with the persistent servers. I definitely see a lot more populated servers these days, but there's still like half of them that are just simply XP farming servers, which sucks, and it also undermines the game's already lacking progression system. Overall, I am really looking forward to the content still coming for 2042. I'm impressed with how far the game has come and how much fun it is actually right now to play, but I am also keenly aware of the gaming landscape and just how attractive 2042 is within it. Battlefield is still the only game that can deliver that core Battlefield experience, and 2042 is delivering it much more so than when it launched, and that will always be its strongest appeal. I hope 2042 continues to grow and evolve, and that the lessons of this game are carried over into the next title. What are your thoughts on 2042 right now? How are you liking Season 3? Are you excited about the future, or are you playing other things? Also, if you missed last week's news video, check it out here. Sony revealed some pretty interesting sales info comparing COD and Battlefield, which gave us a real clear picture of where the two franchises stand. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.